Yes, thank you. Nice to see you again, Mr. Dodge. Thank you for appearing. I want to pick up on your point about the low capital output performance um, and ask you, this is a two-part question. The first is whether you think we also have a productivity of capital problem. In other words, a poor I-call problem, not just a capital output problem, and why that might be the case. And secondly, thinking about, what produces investment, you've already mentioned it. It's savings that are transformed into investment, and savings can be domestic savings or they can be foreign savings. It seems to me that we don't really have a savings problem. There's a surplus of liquidity sloshing around the global economy, including in Canada. Can you talk a bit about whether there are intermediation problems that are causing the lack of investment in Canada, and whether these intermediation problems are at the banking level, they at the level of corporations, who are hoarding cash and choosing to do that because it's a better way for them to reward their shareholders, perhaps, and get a little bit behind this conundrum of savings not being able to translate into investment.
Well, you're absolutely correct that in recent years we have had very high savings, and we had high savings at the household level, during COVID, and we have had high savings uh, in industry, in those industries which are highly concentrated. Um, Concentration tends to push up business savings um, over the demand for business investment. Um, so that's been a problem that has existed not just for us, but has existed essentially in the OECD world, um, and the problem which government has historically tried to mitigate by creating demand uh, by dissaving themselves, right? That I think is that situation. I think today, in part because of COVID, um, it is changing and may change much more quickly, spurred by the geopolitical situation that we have at the moment, which is breaking down the international trade order, which we have built painfully since the GATT meeting in Havana in 1947. Um, so, so today, when I look out and when central bankers look out, they see supply constraints as the main problem that it's facing. It's the supply constraints that are leading to price increases. And while central banks can raise interest rates to cut off demand, both investment demand and consumer demand, unfortunately, as those interest rates go up, to rebalance demand with the highly constrained supply. Releasing more supply here in Canada and around the world, we have to turn to structural policy, government structural policy, in order to do that. And those structural policies are difficult. They're painful. They require uh, uh, careful careful legislation, well-designed legislation. But we know some of them. We know what some of them are in order to release it, and that's why I go back to the couple of things I mentioned earlier. That if we think on the regulatory side, clear, simple, never simple, but clear, straightforward, not changing regulations is important. And on the fiscal side, if we think of the tax system, um, the issue is not the effective effective statutory rate that is so important in terms of investment. We've operated many years with much higher statutory rates, but the the reward, if you will, needs to come to companies that reinvest. And so within the tax system, whether it's a change in the CCA structure, whether it's tax credit, uh, general tax credit operations, um, I think is really quite important. Now that's a tax issue. Then we have labor market issues to work through that are very important. Um, Very important that we stop discouraging our older workers from staying in by having really very high effective tax rates on lower income workers that uh, through our transfer system. So there are a lot of issues, and I I, I think I should stop at
Yeah,
that
we'll
point, Senator.
we'll